Valyrians are supposed to look kinda weird. Not ugly, mind you, but a striking, inhuman beauty. George Martin said he wanted Valyrians to be a race apart, with distinctive features from the rest of the Westerosi. Most notably, the silver hair and purple eyes, but also fine chiseled aristocratic features. Typically, this means long, thin noses, sharp jawlines, strong, defined chins, high cheekbones, etc. I am not denigrating HBO for being unable to stick to these features for every Valyrian they've cast. After all, I believe physical resemblance is only third most important when adapting a character for the screen, behind acting ability and marketability. No, Thea Saban doesn't have a particularly long nose or prominent chin, but she's a fantastic actor. Matt Smith does actually look kinda weird and aristocratic, but he was cast for his acting chops, so that's all fine. But come on people, this looks so much cooler than this. In 2010, they tried doing colored contacts with Tamsin Merchant for the unaired Game of Thrones pilot, and even for Tyrion. But apparently, to be wearing colored contact lenses every day you shoot is a nightmare. By the time Emilia Clarke replaced Merchant, they didn't even bother. I can respect this as a filmmaking practicality, but to be quite honest, there were only 2 Targaryens in the show for 6 episodes, and then only 1 for the rest of the way. I would have appreciated the use of visual effects to correct Dany's eyes. That's the sort of attention to detail for the sake of world building and whimsy that I adore. And don't tell me the CGI wasn't possible in 2011. Here's a low-budget BBC adaptation of Gormenghast, and Titus Groan has purple eyes here. And even if these are contacts, certainly these are not. They're not giving an infant colored contacts. So the tech was there 11 years before Game of Thrones.
This isn't new information for book readers. Qyburn says that blood magic is the darkest kind of sorcery. Some say it is the most powerful as well.
Leave us, Podrick. I believe we know how to pour our own wine.
That's your new squire. I found you a proper lad.
Myself, I prefer the improper ones.
That's a good red. Dornish?
You know your wines, my lord.
That I do. A fine dinner, my lord.
Call me Tyrion, please. I'm sure you're getting used to fine dinners now that you're a lord.
Maybe I'll hire this cook of yours.
Wars have been started for less.
And Archmaester Marwyn the Mage tells Sam that all Valyrian sorcery was rooted in blood or fire. Fire and blood. Fire magic, of course, is pretty straightforward. The Targaryens ride around on magical fire-breathing dragons, but what is blood magic? What does it do, and how does it work? Well, unless and until we get more information from George R.R. Martin about Old Valyria, we can't know for sure what happened at the Anogrion. For the linguistically minded, the word Anogrion seems to just relate to the High Valyrian word Anogar, which means blood. But what we can do is look at the blood magic on display in A Song of Ice and Fire and draw some conclusions from that. The most prominent early example of blood magic in A Song of Ice and Fire is undoubtedly the case of Mirri Maz Duur and Khal Drogo, where we first hear that haunting phrase, "Only death may pay for life." This chimes clearly with the apparent near-universal law of magic in George R.R. Martin's world, indeed in most fantasy worlds, that magic requires some degree of sacrifice. Here, if you want to save a life, it will cost you a life. Blood must be spilt, so blood magic. While her husband lay comatose floating in a tub, Dany's men brought Drogo's great red stallion forward to be sacrificed. Mirri drew an ancient bronze dagger covered in runes, cut the horse's throat and began to chant and sing, urging the strength of the mount to go into the rider.
Commander on the throne! When I took command of the watch, you were stray mongrels. Starving and undisciplined. Now, you're a pack of hounds, sated and honed for the hunt.
the Dothraki knew that blood magic was both dark and powerful. Eventually it came to blows outside the tent between the two sets of Blood Riders and Ser Jorah. Perhaps those 4 additional deaths so close by had an impact on the spellcasting. While everyone stood outside, Mirri Maz Duur's spell grew ever creepier, her singing growing louder and stranger while dancing shadows appeared beside her, and she danced with them. With no POV inside the tent, we can't be sure what those shapes were, but she told them that "My song will wake powers old and dark. The dead would dance here this night."
The Valyrians may have actually created the dragons through genetic mutations and breeding. This honestly isn't out of the question, because it is something they dabbled in later on in the story. There are 2 creatures in this world that very closely resemble dragons that the Valyrians could have experimented with: wyverns and fireworms, but really the only fantastical creatures known to exist that kind of fall into the same class as dragons. I should talk about the Valyrians' obsession with interbreeding different species though. They practice blood magic and other dark arts as well, delving deep into the earth for secrets best left buried, and twisting the flesh of beasts and men to fashion monstrous and unnatural chimeras. Enslaving the people they just conquered with their dragons wasn't enough for the Valyrians. It was never enough for them. Instead of conducting their mutant experiments on their mining slaves or their slave army, they chose the worst criminals for this one. They also took their work to a different location, where they formed something called the Flesh Pits. It was on an island just southeast of Valyria. Founded by the old empire of Geese, it was known as Gorgei for close on 2 centuries, or perhaps 4, there is some dispute, until the Dragon Lords of Valyria captured it during the Third Giscari War and renamed it Gogosos. By any name, it was an evil place,